We're so grateful to have you in the house. We're so grateful to have you online, wherever you are. Tell a friend to tell a friend, come on in. Tonight we're going to have a conversation with the newly installed pastor of the New Life Baptist Church, Pastor Joe, or Pastor Jovan Cline. So get ready, sit back. This should be a good one. We hope you're doing well today. If you missed the last episodes, you want to go back on our YouTube channel, New Life BVI, and on Facebook, same handle, New Life BVI. And you want to catch the last couple episodes. We did an episode with the couples, that was an interesting one.
It was something.
Listen, a lot of times we remember God and we forget our spouse. So we want to make sure that...
I have some things to address about that one.
Ooh, yeah, we're gonna get into it. We're going to get into it. So Pastor Joe, greet the people.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Like Angel said, I'm Pastor Jovan Cline. I think we're in for an interesting night. I'm here to have fun and just talk. The whole concept with New Wednesdays is just to create an atmosphere where we can share. I'm the type of person, I go long stints where I don't even listen to sermons. I just listen to conversations and interviews, and I learn so much just from how someone expresses themselves genuinely. So I think, it would be beneficial for us to create that space to give people the chance to express themselves genuinely as well and just build on that.
I like that, because one of the things we stopped doing in the church is just having good old conversation.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Just talking, man.
Fellowship halls used to be a thing, right? After you had great revival and services, there was a fellowship hall. Mm-hmm. It was a thing. The whole purpose of it was to mingle one with another.
Yeah.
And we miss that now, because after church is finished, we go home. So if your brother or sister has an issue, we don't have the level of relationship that our grandparents had within the church. Think about it. You knew sister so-and-so children, you knew her grandchildren, you knew her children coming up, you knew her neighbor, and there was conversation. So I like the fact that New Wednesdays brings back the conversational side of our spiritual walk with God, because we can't walk it alone.
Yeah.
So Pastor Joe, let's start at the current base.
Okay.
Last month, January, you were installed as the new senior pastor of the New Life Baptist Church. And this is after 30 years of the previous pastor and presiding Bishop Jovan Cline. Mm-hmm. If you're new here, you'll notice that they have the same last name. We'll get into that. But the appointment was by divine design. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do you feel? And congratulations.
Thank you. It's the funniest thing ever to me. It's still really the funniest thing ever when I sit down and I just think about the position that not necessarily that I found myself in, but God has placed me in. It is so funny to me, because time after time, after multiple stages in my life, I was determined I'm not ending up in this spot. And it just really emphasizes the whole importance of surrender. And for the short amount of time that I've been in it, I can really, really confirm that it was the right choice to make. It was something that really, really pulls, or has really, really been pulling on my true self. So I appreciate it so much. But it's so funny. It's really funny.
It's interesting, because you did not want to become a pastor per se.
No, nothing like it.
Talk to us about why you didn't want to become a pastor, because let's go back a little bit. You're a preacher's kid.
Yeah. I was a preacher's kid. I don't think I'm the worst out there, but I was a bit on the typical side. I took the avenue of rebellion against what was probably expected of me. the being church, being this model person. A lot of people don't know that because I'm very smart. I'm very smart.
It's always the quiet ones.
Yeah, yes, that phrase is very true. So I knew how to move. I knew how to operate. I knew what to say, what not to say. More times than none, you probably know little or nothing about me. And that worked for me. Only my closest friends would really know my stuff. And I operated there, and I, in my own way, always made sure. Actually, there was a point in my life in high school where I just straight out avoided and I refused to engage any religious conversations. I didn't want to talk about God. Didn't want to talk about church. I didn't care. I did not care. Did not want to care. Because I never wanted someone to look at me and say, oh, I always knew you would be this, or of course you would be this because this is who your father is, this is who your mother is. We talk a lot about my dad because he's a bishop and he's been a pastor of the church, but on my mom's side too, it's all there. My mom has been in church forever. My grandfather, her father, has been a pastor for all of my life. Into his 90s, he was preaching. He's still alive, thank God, 96 years old. And he would still kick up a sermon for you, I guarantee. So it was there on both sides. And I didn't want any part of it because I didn't want anyone to feel like they could just estimate or assume who I am. And I didn't want that.
It's interesting because a lot of times it's always those of us who grew up in church who rebel the hardest. And I often wonder why is that? As a preacher's kid, you grew up in church. And to be fair, we talk a lot about your father's legacy, but you're also your mother's child. Very because she is a psalmist, she's a singer, she's exceptional, and that is exactly what you are. You're our singing pastor, but we'll come to that. I don't want to preempt the conversation. But why do you think those who grow up in church rebel so hard?
I think it's the same thing with just everybody else. But because of the area of life, it kind of sticks out more. So everybody wants to define their own path. Everybody wants to be who they are and not, what somebody else sees them as or what somebody else is expecting them to be. The only people you find that just, become exactly what somebody wants them to be, they're looking for a certain type of approval or to make somebody proud. I was not weighted with that burden of trying to look for approval in my father, my mother, my brother, none of them. I often say I don't have role models. I take lessons from just about everybody in my life. There are a lot of significant people in my life, but I sit down with a millionaire, I sit down with a homeless person, and I learn. So there's no role model for me that's someone that I've been just living and looking up to all my life. So there was no one for me to prove anything to. There was no one for me to try to emulate in that sense. So for me, it was really just sticking in my own path and defining who I am for me. And a lot of it also was just blocking out the mess. Because as we said here, my father was Bishop Jovan Cline. Growing up in the BVI, his name went around a lot. There were rumors about this. There were, times where he ran for politics. There were, even up until this day, you catch the right news article and you can see some stuff. And for me, I just wanted to be me. I just wanted to be who I am. I just wanted to be my own person. And the things that I was able to do, just ignoring all this church stuff, it freed me up to just live my life. A lot of people, and I count this as a blessing, a lot of young people who grew up in church and, were here every Sunday and they went to the youth meetings and they went to this and that and they were in this choir singing and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of hurt and scars that they have and, when they come to church now, they're very guarded. They're very, they're looking over their shoulder. They're making sure that, okay, I don't want this person to think about this about me, or, I don't have those things because I grew up around the church, but I didn't grow up in church. Honestly,
I want to take a point, and I think this is a good place where we can inspire. You said something. You said a lot of young people are just trying to make their own path. Mm-hmm. And that's what you were doing. You wanted to define your own pathway. Speak to that person who's watching, who's saying, all I really trying to do out here is define my own path. Mm-hmm. I want to make my own mistakes. I want to not have to follow my father who's a businessman. I don't want people to assume that because my parents are attorneys that this is the pathway that I need to take. How do we get that pressure off of our young people? What can you say to them to encourage them?
The first thing I'll say, when we're young, we're fed this story about what parents are. They're these superhumans who always know what's right. If there's a problem, go to mommy or daddy. If you have a question, just ask your parents. They're the ones that are responsible. Not just responsible for you, but they are the examples of responsibility in your life. And that puts them on a pillar. So when you're growing up with these people on these pillars and, you come across these expectations, the pillar creates the pressure. And that thing right there can send you so wild and crazy. Luckily for me, again, because of a lot of the mess, my parents getting a divorce when I was young, this person having an opinion about it, that person having an opinion about it, me not really having, or based on my perception as a child, I looked around and I didn't feel like there was anybody around that I could really lean on. So that put me in a place where I isolated and I cut off a lot of the emotions. That's a whole other story. We can get into that if you want. But, I cut off a lot of things that would put me in a very manipulated state, or at least I thought. And as I continued on that path, the thing I realized that really freed me up, these parents are people. These parents are human beings. These parents are people that they don't have everything figured out. These parents are people with their own scars, these role models, these pillars that we keep around us. They're just people. And when you look at these people on these pillars, when you look at them as just people, the pressure of fulfilling their expectation, the pressure of determining your path based on what they like or what they don't like, it lifts off of you so easy, because there are a lot of people that are living their life in rebellion that would swear to themselves that, they're not living based on what their parents expect, because their parents want them to be a doctor, but, they're going to be a teacher. But really and truly, their whole life is still based on these expectations, because all of their decisions are based on not doing what the expectation, is set out for them to do. So that thing of just seeing these icons, these role models, just being able to really see them as people with scars, with questions, with a past, and people that are honestly still trying to figure out their own future. Yeah. It really takes off the burden of trying to live a life that pleases their perspective.
I like that. Yeah.
So
knowing that role models had to take the same road, mm-hmm. should give you some comfort to know it's okay.
It is.
It's okay for you to walk it alone.
Yeah.
It's okay for you to look back for some assistance, but it's okay for you to chart your way forward. Yeah. I like that. Let's talk a little bit about the journey here. Can we be honest?
No, let's be honest. Let's do it. Y'all ready? Okay, everybody good? Yeah, all right.
Let's be honest. We're going to take Pastor Joe somewhere that we're not sure if he's ready to go, but let's just be honest about it, Uh-huh. We expected you to be a Grammy recording artist, not our pastor. Mm-hmm. How do you feel knowing that There's a little bit of that potential dream, or was that a dream, I should ask?
It has been an idea, a possible aspiration. I'll take you back some
Wait,
more.
before you go forward. So a possible aspiration.
Uh-huh.
How do you take that possible aspiration and be okay with God's destination for you?
So while I was in college, I came to understand that God is not one-dimensional, and we are not people of a crystal purpose. We have fluid purposes. So our sense or idea of purpose should be fluid and not crystal. Let me say it like that. What I mean by that is, if you recognize that you have a gift as a teacher, it doesn't mean that the only thing you'll be able to do for the rest of your life is be in a classroom and teach. So in my space, God leading me to this, for me, it doesn't say that the world of being a recording artist is closed off for me. And I mean, we could look at a lot of examples. Tasha Cobbs, she's a pastor. Travis Green, Ty Tribbett. There's a lot of them, these amazing artists who have done wonderful, and they run churches. So for me, whatever God brings me into, and especially this, it just opens the playing field. It doesn't close me off to anything at all.
I like that. You see, in our region, there's not a lot of those examples. The examples you have listed are examples that would matter for people who live outside of our region. But in our region, we haven't quite seen it. So it's important to me that you've made it abundantly clear publicly that this isn't ending your aspirations.
No.
Because God has given him a gift. And I watched a Hallmark movie the other day. And you could go see this if you want to. It was entitled The Singing Pastor.
Okay.
And I found it to be very interesting because the church where he was now taking over, they didn't want, it was a young lady, they didn't want her to sing anymore. She just needed to preach. And her mother was trying to get her to go to her hometown so that she could take up an opportunity there, but she didn't want to. She wanted to stay at this mega church. And she went to her hometown. It was a small, by the way, church.
Typical Hallmark movie.
Typical storyline. And when she got there, the reason her mother sent her there is because the pastor who had gone on to heaven was a singing pastor. And that congregation's oil was centered around a singing pastor. Because the pastor didn't just preach, he set the atmosphere with his voice. And when she got there and realized that she would still be able to do this thing that God had blessed her with, it kind of changed her outlook on what she thought her future would be. Do you feel or hear any of yourself in that?
In a sense, yes. Obviously, I sing. I'm a pastor. Obviously, well, if you watch online, for those of us who do come to church on Sundays, sometimes I start off by singing. Sometimes I start off with a song, continuing probably what the praise team was singing or going into something else. I answered a question earlier while I was on 284 Media about worship, how important is worship. And what I find, what I believe is, because God lives in us, that spirit, like we talked about some Bible studies back, that spirit of God is in us. When we worship, it's not an act of us trying to bring God from wherever he is to come around us. It's us lifting up the power and the spirit that is within us and setting it on the outside of us. It's us expressing the nature of God through the vessel that it's in. So that ability or that opportunity to worship, that ability to raise up the nature of God that is in you and set the atmosphere from that nature with that tone, set the atmosphere with everything else that is vibrating at whatever other frequency is vibrating at, and you affecting it with the nature of God, that thing is essential to life. And I say all of that to say worship will forever be a part of my life. Whether it be something I'm recording or just doing in a moment, in my day-to-day, worship is how I live. Worship is how I remember God. Worship is the thing that calms me down. Worship is the thing that riles me up. It will forever ever be that thing. Yeah. Hasn't always been,
but it will be.
Let me tell you.
So you are not your dad.
Not quite. He has a voice, He has.
We're going in a different direction. He does. He can sing. He can't sing.
Yeah, he can hold a note.
But he can sing.
I'll say this: he showed up for the choir rehearsals, the praise team rehearsals, and he followed the piano.
I know. This better be a joke. Is this right? Did he show up?
He did show up. I have it on tape.
Oh, we're gonna interview him. We're gonna interview him next.
If we get how many likes? If we get 500?
Yeah, if we get 500 likes, we're gonna show
likes,
the video.
I'll post a tape of Bishop's audition.
That is funny. Oh, I can't wait to see that. But I say you are not your dad because things are changing at New Life. What do you hope to be the legacy that you leave when your 30 years has expired?
The word that stands out in my head is acceptance. I remember as a young child being in church and sitting down in the back. This is at King Adam Baptist, because my active ministry started at King Adam Baptist Church. So a lot of my youth, I was at the King Adam Baptist Church. But I remember being in church one time and, just sitting down, paying attention, but just sitting down and taking things in my way. And the usher came by and, started to say, come, you need to stand up, you need to do this, you need to do that. And it really just took me out of the whole mood because I was harassed now, and in that moment, I wasn't being accepted. I was being put in a mold. And the thing I hope to leave as a legacy for New Life is the air and the muscle of acceptance. And no matter who walks through those doors, no matter how they are, how old they are, what they've been through, what anybody might think they know about them, that as soon as they step in, as soon as they come on a campus, they meet a spirit of acceptance, a spirit of love, a spirit of confidentiality, a spirit of care, nurturing, something where they can walk out and feel like these people might actually be decent. These people might actually care about me. This smile actually felt like a smile, that hand, that hug, that it actually felt like a person, and that's something that I hope to inspire, because church didn't convince me to love God. Life convinced me to love God. I had to take a real hard look at in the mirror one night while I was on the phone with a past girlfriend, and she was crying and crying and crying, and I had to look at myself and what am I doing? Who am I really? Who am I becoming? Where does this lead for me at all? And I started from there to say, I want to become a better person. And that's when I tracked back to church and say, well, let me start here. Let me start with this foundation. And just even growing in my understanding of God, my relationship with God has little to do with this building. It has little to do with the buildings that I've been in. I'm grateful for the space. And, I said it before, coming here at New Life, among the music ministry, I was accepted there in a major way, and it's a big part of why I'm still here. But I hope that when people come here looking for something, that we accept their search, and that's the thing.
That's the legacy.
Yeah.
What I hear is, I hope they don't find church people. I just want them to find people.
Yeah, church people are annoying. They are annoying bad. The people who think that they have this whole church thing figured out, and the people that think that they got God figured out, is so annoying. It frustrates me to the highest heaven.
I want to rewind that. People here.
Yeah. No, but it is like I say, when I really said, like, there was no pull with church for me. It was really my own journey that took me on. A lot of people look at me and they really, really, and I'm so grateful for it, because it tells me that I did a good job when I was wilding. I did a good job when I was just out there. Y'all know what I mean? Like, if you can get through some stuff, you could do some stuff, and you come out on the other side and people look at you and say, oh, you're such a nice person. You feel like mission accomplished. I did my dot, and they still don't know. A lot of people see me, and they still. If I say, like, I started drinking when I was 12, I was smoking in high school, and I was never the worst with any of these things. I was never a chain smoker.
Don't try to clean it up now, Pastor Joe. Don't.
It's the truth, because I have some friends that can correct me. I have some friends that could put me in my place if I ever try to make myself sound like the biggest bad boy or anything like that. I was never the worst. I wasn't the best. A few months ago, I came to the realization that I was the trouble kid in my class. I didn't realize that. But when I sit down and I think about it, I was a kid, always talking, having to be moved, having to be, I got kicked out of so many CXC classes. I got demoted from classes, and, it's real. The only reason I graduated high school is because somebody tell me if I don't pull up my socks in school, they gonna just cut me off, and I didn't want that to happen. It was so much, I was in a place of really just not caring, and the structure of school was not really for me to sit down and just take an information thing. And even when I got into college, I was excited because of a new space, but then I got bored. And, the only reason I went to university, this is when I just started this whole music thing. It was me and a friend named Francois, and we said, we're gonna make some songs. And we're going to that's when the top 7 at 7.
Oh, top 7 at 7.
Yes, top 7 at 7. That's when that was going on. We said we're going to put out some songs there and see what happens, and, see if we get signed. And I was saying, if I get signed, I'm not going to school. I didn't care to go to university. But God.
Shout out to Craig Lake for putting the young people on. We're gonna have him. We're going to have him do a sit down. Shout out to Craig Lake.
But it was in that same moment where God was pulling my heart. Because, you see, I wanted to be a surgeon. I was a very cold person at this time. I wasn't a real friend to most. I was a horrible boyfriend. I wasn't, at least thinking back on who I was, I wasn't the best person. I was cold. So in my cold state, I was determined to be a surgeon, because I know I could cut people up and go home and have a nice steak dinner. Yeah, I'll be just fine. I'm better now. Where's Cameron?
We thank God for saving
I'm better.
our pastor for real.
And God opened my mind up. And it was actually, we were out, me and my friends used to do something called park nights, where we would go out. I won't say how old we were. We would just go out into whether it be Noillard Park or whatever it is. And we just get some bottles. Don't ask me how we got bottles. Get some bottles, we sit down, we drink, and we just have a good time. We enjoy ourselves, We realize this is the wisdom of the youth. We realize that it was cheaper to get bottles than to try to buy drinks. Long story short, we were sitting down on the grass, and we were just talking, and I was just commenting on this and commenting on that, and I'm gonna rat her out a little bit, but it's okay. I didn't think no name calling, but it's a good thing. It's a really good thing.
They gotta tell their own story. You can't
tell
it.
My good friend, my very good friend. I'm not gonna call her name. I'm pulling myself back. But she looked at me, and she said, "You should be a pastor." And she said, you should be a pastor. And I looked at her like, you must be really drunk right now. Granted, she wasn't a drinker or anything like that, but that was the first time, in even the slightest, I ever considered it. So shout out to her. Because I think God used her in that moment to put it in my mind. Because going forward from there, in college, my ambition for biology died down. It became very boring to me. But my ambition for sociology and, of course, getting closer to God, I was on this big pursuit with God, realizing that I was cold and, wanting to be better, wanting to do something as just be able to cry, because crying did not exist for me. I did not cry. Something horrible is happening. I find it funny. I wanted to get to the point and have my own breakthrough and just shed a tear. So I was pursuing God based on that, and my heart was between these two things. And I came to a point while I was at HLSCC, the H. Laverty Community College, that I rather be on the side that proves the doctor wrong than the doctor that's proven wrong. I had a pivotal moment standing up right outside the library, just thinking about my life with that. And that's when I decided that I will go to university. And the university that I wanted to go to, it had nothing to do with school, cared nothing about school at that point. It was the Rutgers University, and the reason I wanted to go to Rutgers University, because right in New Brunswick, which the school is in, or that campus, is the Abundant Life Family Worship Center, where our very own Donna Cline, that's where she came up in worship. And I wanted to figure out, my thing was all about how do I get this power? I was big on, prophecies and power and spiritual things and, abilities and gifts. So I wanted to figure out how did Donna become so skilled and anointed as a worshiper? So I wanted to go to Rutgers just so I could go to this church, and I would enroll myself in the praise team and the choir and wow them with my voice. And, I would learn all these things and become, something similar or what Donna resembles as an amazing worship leader. And that's why I ended up at Rutgers University. But God used that moment. When I was going to the auditions for Abundant Life, he stopped me in my tracks the night before in a dream. And I don't mean to sound spooky spiritual, but this is what happened. In the dream, I walked up to the counter. I was about to sign up, and the person there, they asked me, like, "Who is your father?" I was like, "John Cline is my father." And they looked so pissed off. It was like, "Who is my father? Who is your father?" And then it clicked, God is my father. Because God is my father, I don't have to go searching for this recognition or look for this power, this gift from these people, because God is going to direct exactly where I need to go. Because I guarantee you, if I got comfortable there, I would not be here. So, along that course and along that journey, and I'm skipping a lot of things, but along that course, along that journey, I really developed a sense of myself. And in the middle of that, I was connected to not even some people, I was connected to a person that I was in a mini cult for about 4 years while I was coming up. And this person was basically in the place of God. Whatever they said, was gold. And it was like that because they had spiritual gifts, and I wanted to learn these spiritual gifts. I wanted to be able to do what they do, and they promised being able to teach those things. And it went down a very manipulative, perverted path, and in that experience, God kept telling me, you need to separate, you need to leave. But this person was telling me that, no, you're not hearing the right thing. And they convinced me for a long time that I didn't hear God. And there's a lot of people and a lot of us that think for a long time that, we don't know what God really sounds like, or we don't really hear from God, or we're not good enough to really get direction from God. So we go searching for direction from the people in position, those people on pillars. But it's not the truth.
Yeah.
So that moment and being in there for 4 years, when I finally got the courage and the insight and the understanding to leave, I left with the confidence that I do hear from God. I left with the confidence that God does speak to me. God does reach out to me. I do have a connection for myself. And it gave me a boldness. It gave me this kind of confidence that I walk with so joyfully. And it gave me a sense of freedom because when God is telling me something, I know he's telling me something. Because when God is directing me towards a certain path, I know that he's directing me towards a certain path. And that's the thing. That confidence, that lesson, that's the thing that allowed me to say yes to this door.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love the fact that God doesn't do anything unless he first proclaims it over our lives. And I need us to hear this because a lot of times, Pastor Joe, proclamations are made. But because it's not always in the setting that we're accustomed to spiritually, we don't hear God in those moments. So when your friend said, you should be a preacher, that was God's initial proclamation over your life. Yeah. I'm calling you to preaching. The journey's going to be different from here out because I need you to find me separately. But I proclaim now, because he uses anybody, that this is the pathway that your life will take. And he did it early. Just as is true with a lot of us. God does it early.
There's a book that I want to write. And I'm going to call it post-prophecy. Because what happens a lot is we get these prophecies, we get these words spoken into our lives. And for the rest of the year, for the next few months, we are holding on to this thing. We are looking for this thing, and in every nook and cranny, every bush is some kind of potential for it or somebody trying to walk against it. And years and years and years go by, and trial after trial goes by, and we feel so discouraged. Like that moment that we had, that we were so clear about when we heard God, or when somebody said something and it made so much sense in that moment, we feel so lost in comparison to where we were in that point. And we don't get much help on what to do after the prophecy. Is a very, very tricky place.
But sometimes there's no direction after the prophecy.
That's true.
This is a quick segue, but there's a lot of people who get declarations over their lives where God is using someone to outwardly say a direction that you're not going to move into anytime now, maybe not in this decade in your life, but he needed to say that so that the enemy is on notice publicly in the airways that this is the direction that I've said. And I've used someone who isn't the person that you would expect to say it, because you may rebel against that thing. Because if you were told in church that this is what you were going to do, your rebellion would have been harder. But God had to do it in a moment where you were in your place of solitude or comfort.
Let's call it solitude.
A place of He had to use it where you were in that broken space in your life, because you would hear and remember that.
Yeah.
It's not going to follow you. It's not going to continue a pathway for you to lead towards it, but you'll remember it. So sometimes those declarations are important. I remember the first time I took my husband back to where I grew up in St. Croix, and my youth pastor saw us in the mall just randomly, and he laughed. You know how Pastor Colin laughs?
Oh,
he's very
horrible.
Similar to him, and he laughed. And the first thing he came up to me and said, because he recognized me before I recognized him, and he came up to me and he said, "Boy, you did exactly what that prophet said, huh? You marry a blah, blah, blah," and he's going down this list, and I had never remembered that. And I was 16 when a prophecy was said over my life about what my husband would look like. And the prophet said to me, well, not really what he would look like, but the prophet said to me, say what you want in a husband. I never wanted to be married. My mother was an unmarried person. And when my youth pastor came up to me and he goes, oh my goodness, look at this. And he's listing off these things that this prophet said when I was 16. It blew my mind because God did a declaration. I had no intention. I didn't care about relationships, and that wasn't for me. So it proves to me the fact that that has happened to you, and I know so many stories that are similar. I'm sure many of us here have a moment where you could look back where God said something that you didn't take seriously from that person, and the path in your life has followed that so strategically that you couldn't even write that book.
Yeah.
You couldn't write it.
I read a book one time I have a lot of disclaimers about myself. I don't read as much as I should. I really don't read at all. I'm a very slow reader. My aim is to build that muscle, but I love the concept of books. Yeah. And I have a big stack of books. My wife could tell you, we have there's a whole shelf, and she reads all the books, and I'm planning to get to them all. But all that to say, one of the books that I actually did read, it talks about God being a wild lover. Like his love is wild because he comes at you in a way where it seems like he's trying to destroy you. It seems like he's trying to send you mad. It seems like he's trying to just throw you in this whirlwind, and it's something that is not, it's hard to comprehend if you can ever comprehend it. And I want to put out a disclaimer about this prophecy stuff and these prophets. There's some people that take advantage of the fact that you're not gonna understand everything that God is doing, because that's what was used against me. That person who I followed around for 4 years, that person who I basically put them in the position of God, and this sick individual, one of these Sundays I'm going to talk about that some more, or maybe another setting like this, or not tonight. Their thing was, this is too much for you to understand. And I have the gift and you don't. And I want us to always, whenever we step into a conference or a workshop or deliverance this or deliverance that, we really, really have to step in with our understanding and our relationship with God heavy on our heart. So when someone is talking to us and, we know that it doesn't connect with what God already told us. We know that it doesn't connect with what God already showed us for our lives, and we could stand against it and not just run with it because they have some title or they have on fancy clothes or they shout, or because, they came with, 50 people behind them, or they have their own ministry here, there, around the world. It really don't matter. Gifted people are not all genuine people, and gifted people are not all righteous people. Yeah. You have some people that are gifted and they're sick. You have some people that are gifted and they're cold, and they don't really care about you. They just care about the name and the show. And I don't know whose feathers I'm ruffling, but you check yourself, So I want to put out that disclaimer because, and I tell this to Jabez all the time, or young people, because we bring in people for them to learn from. I said, when these people come in here and talk to you, don't make them your role model. I'm not presenting role models to you. I'm presenting opportunities for lessons. And God uses everybody. Because that same person who I followed around for 4 years, God used them. What they meant for perversion, God meant it unto his own prophecy. God meant it unto his own purpose. God uses anybody. But we lose the sight of the lesson when we set that person up as the lead, as the light. We can't do that. We can't do that. It's something that I think, we'll be able to grow more from or with as we continue, because we're a house that we invite prophets in.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we make sure that we don't, bring in anyone who is shady or just using the church. And Bishop, a lot of people don't know this. Bishop has done a great job time after time of talking to people behind the scenes and saying, listen, this is how far you're going to go. This is where you're going to stop. This is what you will do. This is what you won't do. To make sure that the people in this house are protected. And when someone, if they miss the force radar and they show themselves to be silly, they get cut off. People don't always know those things, but it's a walk. It's a walk. So that confidence of just knowing that there is something in me that is of God and I can connect to it before I need to depend on anybody else to tell me something about God is essential.
Yeah, I like that. I don't know if we have any questions. I'll ask someone to just grab an extra mic as we wind down just a little bit. But one of the things that I want to touch on just for a little bit is, we talked a little bit about your legacy. We talked about you being a PK. We talked about the rebellion that led you to righteousness. And I just want to talk a little bit now about how you feel in this moment or in these moments where God is moving you. Whether you feel like, God, thank you for not forgetting me, or God, you remembered. Is there anything that you've seen so far in this new journey? Because for some, the journey has only started in January, but truthfully, the journey started a year ago. For you, what has God remembered, or what did you forget and he has brought back to your remembrance that's been pivotal, especially as we go into rest? And I want you to talk a little bit about that.
God, when I was really young, I loved God more than anything else. And my entire ambition was just, God does love me. As I grew up and just interacted with life, and a lot of life covered a lot of my own light, I lost a lot of that. And my ambition turned into just protecting myself with my own identity, protecting myself with my own plan of what I want to do and see. What I can say is God continued to plan for me, or his plan continued to prevail for me, even when I stopped planning for myself. Because I gave up on my own hopes and dreams and ideas. And there was a point in my life where I gave up on all of that. And I was just existing. I was just walking around, and, people don't know that, like I've seen the spirit of depression face to face. It's a possessive thing, but God continued to plan for me. And the most recent point in life, I could point that out. When I was leaving the wellness center, when I came back home, I worked at my dad's business, Infinite Solution, for about a year or so, and then I worked as a school counselor for about 3 years, and then I transitioned to the wellness center. I was there for about 3 years, and when I was leaving the wellness center, my ambition there was to go back to Infinite Solutions and work there full time. Build up the business, become ingrained in that area of business. And I remember my second to last day walking out of the wellness center in Pear Park. And God told me, you think you're leaving the wellness center to be full-time at Infinite Solutions, but you're leaving the wellness center to do full-time ministry. And I tell God he crazy. I said that don't make any sense. Unbeknownst to me, the whole opportunity of being the senior pastor was already in the air. It was already in the air. But unbeknownst to me, the trustee board had already met, had already voted. And not only had they voted for me to be in this position, but they put on the table that they want me to be the first full-time pastor that the church has ever had. So when Bishop sat me down and he presented the whole thing to me, I laughed. Because he didn't know what God had already put in my head and what I was already, back and forth with. And I say all that to say, time after time I've recognized how God has kept me from something, how God has led me to things, how God has set things up just so I can be where he wants me to be. The reason I've been able to see a lot of the evidence is because I've learned how to say yes to God. I learned how to surrender my own wisdom and my own dreams and my own ambition and recognize when this is something that God is pointing me to and walk in it. There was a point in my life I told God, God, you have given me everything I have ever asked for. I'm going to give you whatever you're asking for. Don't go saying that if you ain't ready. Don't go saying there's some things, let me tell you, there's some things I don't say anymore. There's some songs I don't sing anymore because God is listening to you. Yeah? But I told him that, and every yes has led to a beautiful beginning. Yeah. Every yes has led to a beautiful beginning. And every time I reach that point of revelation, I think about each step that it took me to get there. And I just recognize that God's got me.
Yeah, I love that. So it's almost like that love you had as a child, God brought it back to you by showing you love throughout your journey.
Yeah.
That's amazing. We're going to take some questions. I hope you were inspired and blessed by this. I hope this showed you a different side of Pastor Joe, because sometimes we see our pastors kind of like what he described, we see our parents on this pedestal, perfect or almost perfect. And what we heard tonight is that God doesn't really favor perfect. He likes a little bit of imperfection because it makes you relatable. It makes you a person.
Yeah.
Not a church person, just a person.
Yeah.
With the ability to be used. I'm going to let Pastor Joe just kind of talk to that young person, that older person, that person who's in a season in their life where they feel that they don't see where the declaration of their life is moving in a direction that they think God is moving, or the pathways just aren't lining up in the manner that they thought that it should be for where they are. I'm 40 and I still don't have a husband. I'm a single mother and I still can't get things together. I have a business and it's just not moving, and you told me to start this, or I'm a young person and people just don't understand me. Pastor Joe, if you don't mind, just take a minute, and speak to that before we open up the floor.
The thing that has saved me time and time again, the thing that has saved me from bitterness, the thing that has saved me from being lost, the thing that has saved me from being stuck in a singular purpose is the ability to remain open, to have an open heart, to have an open mind, and continually say yes to God. That thing that God told you, that thing that God showed you, that thing that you believe about yourself, that good thing, you're not crazy about it. You're not crazy about it. You do have a gift. You do have a purpose. You do have a reason to live. You're not crazy about it. What happens is we interact with life a lot, and all of it gets covered up. We have to make the steps to open ourselves up. It's scary because you're vulnerable. You don't want nobody to be able to hurt you. You don't want anyone to be able to take advantage of you. You don't want anyone to be able to use you or manipulate you or abuse you. I get it. That's why I was closed off for most of my adolescent years going into my adulthood. It's why I shut a lot of things out. But when you open yourself up to being vulnerable to the truth about yourself, the truth about what you feel, you open yourself up to the truth of God that lives in you. Remain open. That business God wanted you to start, it might seem like it's not moving. There's more to it. Open up again. Open up your vision, open up your perspective, and see where God is telling you to move with it. Those connections that you made, don't block yourself off from partnerships. Don't block yourself off from learning. Don't block yourself off from feeling and understanding. Most importantly, do not block yourself off from admitting that you do not know. You do not understand, that you don't get it. A lot of our peace is lost by trying to figure everything out, by trying to have every T crossed and every I dotted. You have to find peace in the space of not knowing. You have to find peace in the space of not understanding. That is where faith finds you. That is where faith comes alive, and that is where your freedom, that is where your freedom is really, really made whole. Because in that space, you go forward completely trusting God. My failure and my success is all on God. If things go bottom up tomorrow and I never recover, it's on God. Because God put me here. God is leading me in my next steps. And I have that faith because I don't have this figured out.
Just a little bit. I believe
that God is faithful and He cares.
Go ahead, tell somebody who's watching.
I believe that He's almighty and His love will never fail. I believe that every promise He made will prevail. I believe that God is faithful and He cares. And I believe that He's almighty and He's true. And I believe He stands in victory. He fights for me and you. I believe no matter where I go that He's still there. I believe that God is faithful and He cares.
God bless you and have a good night. All right, this is the after party, so we're going to open up the floor a little bit. You're still watching online, so God bless you. This is the after party. We're going to take some questions. If you have any questions or comments, we're going to take that now online. Shoot the questions there.
Anything and everything, guys.
All the properness gone out. No, we just vibing. So anyone you have comments or questions or any point that he said, you can relate to.
There's a lot I did not say about my journey to Him.
No, it's on purpose because we can't talk all. No,
all right, we can't say it to everything. Okay. Okay.
How do you see the church in the next 3 to 5 years about that? How do you see it?
How do I see the church in the next 3 to 5
5
years?
years, yes.
Okay, that's a good question. So, 3 to 5 years, I see us finally becoming or stepping into being ready to fully open up. Because there's a lot of work that needs to happen now. Let me reverse. Do you mean the church as in New Life or the church as the body?
Hopefully the body. No, we talk
Oh.
about the body. We're going to talk about the body. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll do a bit of both, right? I'll get to New Life and then I say the body. Right now we are preparing those who will go forward. Right now your arsenal is being built up. Right now you're being trained in combat. Right now you're learning how to fall and get up. Right now you're learning a different language. And I think for us, when that 5-year mark hits, when that 3-year marks hit, we'll be fluent in that language. We'll be ready to fall and get back up. We'll be ready to fight. Yeah? The church body, I think where the church body stands in the next 5 to 3 years, the church will look a lot different than the traditional expectation. And I say that not ever thinking that we will lose what makes the church a church, but we'll have a better understanding of what makes the church a church. We'll have a better understanding of the love that's required. We'll have a better understanding of how to treat these vessels, these temples that walk in, and we'll have a better muscle, we'll have a better habit of how we treat each other and how we remember each other. Hence our theme for the year, remember every sacred temple, or rest. We will be professional resters.
Yeah, I think that's good, because if you look at it, globally, the kingdom looks different.
Yeah, it already
It's not
does.
what we grew up knowing. You know, I went to a Methodist church just on this past Sunday, and I did not feel very Methodist in the way that I grew up with it being. You know, their praise and worship was akin to our praise and worship. There was no hymn sung on that Sunday, and I was actually very disappointed, because that's what I know is the hymns. So the kingdom looks different, because although God remains the same, he is a relevant God. So we should always be moving with the tides of the world if we want to reach people. We can't stay the same. So our pastors aren't going to be 3 suit down.
Yeah.
They aren't going to be in a building. I mean, in 3 to 5 years, I imagine the church is going to go back to open air service, but it's just going to look different.
And can I say this? And I'm not going to take time to dive into this one, because this will take up a whole nother set of time. In 3 to 5 years, the church will not be about Sunday morning. The church will not be about church, will not be about Sunday morning or Saturday morning if you're out there and you're a 7-day Adventist or you worship on a Saturday. It will not be about your Saturday. It will not be about your Sunday. Church will not be about that. Yeah.
Relationship. So we'll take a... Yeah, we have another question. Let's take a question in the back, and then we'll come back around. So if you're online, go ahead, shoot the questions.
Please, online people, y'all, whatever y'all want to add.
Good night. Very
Yeah,
proud
good
of
night.
you, Pastor Joe.
You could call me a godson. It's all
My
right.
godson. I wanted to say, but I didn't want to show off.
We can
you
tell.
know me. I lose my thought of trend, but anyhow, with us being at our age, how do you see us? Being you are so young, because I look around in our church, and it's a lot of us at our age, my age. You know, we are over 50s, we are over 60s, over 70s, close to 80s, because I know 2 of my families are in the 80s, creeping up to 90s. And how do you see that? I mean, I know you're a young pastor, so, you know, how are we, or how are you preparing for our sort of age? I mean, we have Pastor Barrett, we have, oh, look at his face, and we have others, but anyway,
this is something that I want people around the world to understand. Yeah. Like I said before, I don't have one specific role model at all, but I've learned from a various spectrum of a wide spectrum of people. Yeah. On that spectrum, of course, are my elders, my seniors. We need you. we need you. This is, if no young person has ever said this to you before, and I'm looking at you, looking at me, looking at you, wherever you are, whenever you are, we need you. I need my mentors. I need the people that have gone before. I need the people that have made mistakes and are not afraid to talk about those mistakes. So I know which roads are rocky and which roads are, which roads are good. We need you. So my hope for every senior, every person that has gone before, whatever state of life or wherever life has found you now, you are valuable. You have something of value to give and share. The lessons that you have, we need. You do not have to be a millionaire. You do not have to be at the top of whatever career you're at. You don't need to have all these physical things or accolades to show in order to teach somebody something. And those lessons that you have, honestly, I'm more excited to learn about the people that have failed and struggled than I am the people that have just triumphed and they're rich and successful. And it's for me, it's something more valuable to understand the pitfalls and the lows. So when I end up in the lows, I know that somebody has been there before and they survived and they're still breathing and they still have something to give because they gave it to me. We need you.
I want to read you a scripture, and it's funny because this is a scripture I meditated on recently, and it says, Psalms 92:14, they will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green and proclaiming. So I just want to remind everyone who thinks that their time has come, they've already given all that they could give in.
Yeah.
You don't know the mango trees out there that are old. The mangoes still look good and fresh and supple. You don't know the banana trees out there that have been standing for 42 years. They still give bananas that look brand new. So there's no old age in the kingdom because the Bible says that you will still bear fruit and that you will stay fresh and green. So I just want to leave that.
The only thing I will ask, building on that metaphor, make sure the plants that you see, the seeds that you plant, in this stage of your life, after everything that you have experienced, because a lot of people have experienced hard times, have struggled. Please make sure the seeds that you plant are not bitter seeds, are not resentful seeds, are not seeds of hate or revenge. Do not set us up to bear some rotten, bitter fruit. Give us something good to eat in the years to come. So give us good stuff.
That's good. That's good. We have a question online, then we'll do one more in the house. Go ahead. We have one in the house now, and then I'll take the online. Go ahead.
Night. I'm not sure if this was touched on because I came a little late, but is there a guiding principle that you refer to, or a scripture that is your moral compass?
It's okay. Don't be churchy because we know you're not. So
no,
go ahead.
I'm not. And I'm about to paraphrase the life into this scripture. Think not of the morrow. Birds are fed. They don't store up in barns. The grass of the field is clothed in beauty and wonder. And they don't gotta spend no time in the mirror. You don't have to worry as much about yourself as you think you do. And I get up day after day, because make no mistake, this position, as exciting as it is, as much love and good things that I've been receiving in this moment, is pressure. There's a lot of questions to answer. There's a lot of roads to cut. In the moments where I'm really facing the gaping hole of my not knowing, I remember that I don't have to know. I remember that I don't have to have. I remember that I don't have to see. And that gives me the confidence and the reassurance to take another step forward.
That was good. That was good. Online, Bernadine is asking, so Pastor Joe, how do you really and truly know when God is speaking to someone or to you?
That's a good question, because I'm a firm believer that for everybody it's a bit different. God knows how to talk to you like it's you. God knows how to talk to me like it's me. I'll start off with this. Anything that leaves you with a feeling of guilt, fear, pressure, that's not of God. Philippians 4:8 tells us the things of God, the qualities of God. Things that are just, things that are of good report. It's very, very important for us to know the qualities of God. Because once you know the qualities of God, the peace, the reassurance, understanding the love, once you understand those things, when something hits you and you can see the qualities of God in that thing, then that's the point where you say, okay, God, I'm going to move forward with this, and I'm putting it in your hands. I'm going to move forward with this because I feel love in it. I feel peace in it. I feel reassurance in it. I feel grace with this. But don't ever let someone tell you something or convince you of something because it's making you feel bad. Don't ever let someone convince you of something or a voice convince you of something out of fear. God doesn't convince us through fear. God doesn't try to move us with fear. Those things are the things that's going to signify this is the enemy trying to push me. That anxiety is not God. That thing that's making you feel like, oh my gosh, that's not God. That clarity is God. That love is God. That moment of peace you had when this thing came across your mind, that's God. We have to hold on to it. Because somebody told me one time, after the original comes out, there will be counterfeits. After God talks to you, there'll be other voices that try to say similar things, but it don't have the right look to it. They have a different tone. You have to hold on to that moment of clarity, that moment of peace, that moment of love, and trust God in that. Not to know, but to trust God. We focus too much on what we know, what we have. We have to focus and get back to trusting God. Yeah.
That's New Wednesdays, guys. I just want to thank you for coming out. God bless you, and do have a good night. Listen, for the rest of this, for the beginning of the next month, we've got a lot of different persons who will be coming through for us to talk to them. We've got Jugu scheduled. We've got Dr. Mike. We've got a few different people from within our community, and we're going to sit down and we're going to touch every sacred temple right here in the BVI. We'll see you next week on New Wednesdays.